current monetary system, there are 5 things that are accomplished. One, we create and produce money in our fiat money system of the US dollar. That's free to create and produce money. We also store money. We do payment processing. That's the authorization and verification of transactions. We do settlements between banks at the central bank or through the Bank of International Transfers. We also do record keeping. So these are the things that banks do for us. So banks basically control these 5 steps in our traditional fiat currency monetary system. And there are different things that money does for us. I have that right there on page 1. It facilitates trade, it stores our excess wealth, and it can be used to determine a common value of items or services for trade. So there are certain advantages to having a bank-controlled monetary system. I list those there on the first page, but the key to understand is that the system is centrally controlled. So it concentrates powers in the hands of the major banks, in essence. They control the ledgers, they control the debits and credits to those ledgers, they control the database, essentially, of the money system. And when you go, you have to qualify and present your ID to get access to that system, to open up an account, but they have all of the controls. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are a distributed ledger technology. In a distributed ledger technology, no one player controls the database. So distributed ledger technologies aren't just used for cryptocurrencies. There are several companies, for example, one that provides a distributed Oracle database. So if anybody has ever done computer programming and used systems, the underlying database can actually be shared. And the key with a distributed ledger, its biggest advantage is that users who would otherwise not be able to trust each other, the use of the cryptography verifies that the transactions are valid and that the data is accurate. So that whereas if we all didn't know each other in the room, the validation through the distributed ledger technology is what ensures that we have accurate transactions, that we have an accurate database, that we could all read and write to that database. And that's what's different between a bank system is we can't read and write to their database, but in a distributed ledger technology, anybody in the world can write to the database. So that's the power of a cryptocurrency system. So on the second, if you turn that top page over, I kind of show you how those 5 stages of the monetary system are used in a cryptocurrency system, and I use Bitcoin in particular. So the creation and production of money, unlike the US dollar where we just print it, is actually done by Bitcoin miners. Bitcoin is essentially a program. It's a digital currency, and the Bitcoin miners and the work that they do extracts more Bitcoin into circulation. There's a cost of production. I always say, think of it like gold. So in order to use gold as a currency or silver as a currency, we actually have to expend resources to go extract gold and silver from the ground and then use it for transactions. Bitcoin is the same way. Miners actually have to invest in equipment and build a business in order to extract more Bitcoin. They're literally mining for the Bitcoin to add currency to the system. Now, anybody can be a miner. So again, we're not concentrating that ability to create currency in a single centralized hand. Then there's the storage of money, and Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies do that through digital wallets that are either online or offline. So you can have literally a USB drive, and that can contain your cryptocurrency. There's public processing. So when I want to, or payment processing, and it's done over the distributed network, over the network all around the world. So if I decide to pay one of you senators for a transaction, let's say you cut my hair and I'm going to pay you in Bitcoin, we process a transaction. There are apps that do it, and that transaction goes out into the internet, literally the network of Bitcoin miners and nodes, and it gets validated. And it's that process of validating that assures that the Bitcoin I paid to one of you was mine to pay, and that I'm not double paying. And the way it does that is a combination of public keys and private keys. Public keys, picture the post office box at your U.S. Postal Center across the street. Everybody has an address, and the private key is the actual physical key to unlock that box. And it's the combination of those two, public keys and private keys, ensure that I own the Bitcoin that I'm using to pay a transaction. It tells who I want to pay to, and it verifies that we're not double paying and that all of the transactions are validated. Right now, all transaction validation in our typical banking system is done by the banks and the payment processors. So again, it's centralized versus decentralized. Okay, so miners, and that's what a lot of this bill is about, is the right to use Bitcoin and to mine Bitcoin. They are essential to the process. If you go to the top of my second page in your packet, so it's really page 3, I talk about Bitcoin mining. It's essential. And there's two ways the miners participate in the process. And to jump to the chase, on the back of that page there is a picture of a Bitcoin mining machine. It's a computer called an ASICs, ASICS. And what the Bitcoin miners are doing is they are doing calculations. Their computers are processing calculations, and the one who solves the problem for each block of transactions gets to participate in the blockchain, moving those transactions through the system, and they get rewarded for their investment. These machines cost a few $1,000s to $10,000 based on how efficient they are. In the very beginning of days of Bitcoin in 2009, you could use your home computer to do it, but as there is more Bitcoin in circulation and more transactions, the cryptography becomes more difficult to calculate, so you need better computers to do it. And every year, the computers are getting more efficient. You have to cool the processors because they're running through a number of calculations. But here's the reward for the Bitcoin miners. They can earn transaction fees. So when we're processing my haircut transaction fee, they can earn a transaction fee. And if they essentially solve the equation that's got to be solved so that they can participate in the blockchain, they actually extract Bitcoin 6.25 every time they solve the problem. 6.25 Bitcoin is added into circulation, and in today's dollars, that is worth $349,000. So Bitcoin mining is a business. This concept where you have computers all across the world that are processing Bitcoin transactions, this decentralized process, is called a proof of work process. There are two ways you could validate transactions in a cryptocurrency system. One's called proof of work, and the other one is called proof of stake. Proof of work is we buy some machines, we do some mining, our machines are running calculations, and they solve the problem, and they get to earn Bitcoin in transaction fees. That's the work that's being done. Proof of stake is an opposite system. It is used by some other cryptocurrencies, and what it means is that the person who holds the most stake, the stakeholder that has the most of that cryptocurrency, gets to validate the transactions. So I would argue that proof of work, which it's used for a lot of other applications, not just cryptocurrency, has advantages because it decentralizes the validation, and proof of stake centralizes the validation. That's essentially exactly what we have in the banking industry today, is we have the biggest stakeholders really control the ledger and control all the processing. So I would argue that proof of work and through the miners is absolutely necessary to the decentralization of the distributed ledger technology that's key to Bitcoin.